How much does plastic affect the disc's stability? Today we're going to find out, because we have 9 different discs in a variety of plastics to compare. Some are the best-selling discs in their category, some you've never heard of, and some are highly requested comparisons. But this is a question that we've asked before, so why are we asking it again? Well, it's been over a year since we last did a large-scale plastic comparison like this. We're comparing brands we never have, plastics we've never thrown, and we do it all because the plastic is in the details. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs. Today's video is sponsored by Ocean Discs. More about them in just a minute. Last June, we released 2 videos where we compared nearly a dozen different discs in a variety of plastics. And in those, we talked at length about how plastic can affect a disc's stability. So if you want to get more detailed background information from that, check out those links in the description below. For this video though, here's a quick recap. The plastic a disc is made in can change many characteristics of that disc, such as its shape, which could be part whether it's domey or flat, but it could also change the angle of the wing and of course how it flies. It could also change the physical feel of the plastic, the stiffness of the plastic, but most importantly, weight distribution. Weight distribution can change significantly based on the strength and density of the plastic. For example, a cheap base plastic like Innova's DX has to have a thicker flight plate so it doesn't break on the first tree it hits, while flexible, strong, premium plastics like Champion can have a thinner flight plate, putting more of the weight out on the wing. Which is of course why companies are constantly testing and experimenting with new blends. They find new flight characteristics each time they do it. And the variety of feels, stabilities, and visual effects gives people more to choose from. And while people will often choose a disc based on how it looks, they'll keep a disc based on how it flies. So let's see our first plastic comparison of the day, starting with today's sponsor, Ocean Discs. The moment we've been waiting for is finally here. Ocean Discs is proud to introduce the Sea Turtle, the very first disc golf disc made using 60% ocean waste plastic. Designed with precision, the Sea Turtle is a straight-flying but torque-resistant mid-range, suitable for all skill levels. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, this disc will help your game rise with the tide, all while helping clean up our oceans. And you won't have to wait long to get one, because the Ocean Disc Sea Turtle officially launches tomorrow, Friday, September 20th, 2024. To make sure you don't miss your chance to get your hands on this eco-friendly game changer, head over to sixsideddiscs.com and get yours while supplies last. And when we run out, head over to oceandiscs.com to find a list of participating retailers around the world. Together, we can make waves in the disc golf world, one throw at a time. Big thanks to Ocean Discs for supporting our channel and sponsoring today's video. Let's see how the Sea Turtle flies. Now, we did get to test one of the early prototypes of the Sea Turtle late last year before their Kickstarter launched early this year. And we also got to sit down and talk about their vision with their owner, Ali Simonson, on our podcast, All Six Sides. The question now, though, is how different are these plastics? Up first, let's see the prototype from earlier this year, alongside the stock version. These are both in their base plastic, Ocean Waste Marine, which is, in my honest opinion, the perfect blend of stiffness and grip. Off the tee, the prototype is nice and straight. Depending on the angle and power, you can get a slow drifting straight shot or a straight shot with minimal late fade. Comparing that to the new stock Ocean Waste Marine, they fly almost exactly the same. The new stock release flips over, holds a slow turn, and then has some minimal fade for another straight shot. Not bad at all, but what about their premium plastics? Well, first things first, credit to Ali and Ocean Discs for adjusting the flight numbers on their premium plastics. While the base plastic is rated at 5.5, -1.1, the premium blends of Swirly Atlantic and Ocean Waste Pacific are both rated at 5.5.01. And this pleases me greatly because all I want from manufacturers in disc golf is to adjust the flight numbers if the flight characteristics of a particular plastic are different. That's all. And the only thing that would hold the Sea Turtle back at this point is if that 5.5.01 wasn't accurate. So let's find out. First, their 60% recycled Ocean Waste Pacific off the tee definitely has more stability. Resisting turn, holding straight briefly before a moderate fade. while the standard premium blend, Swirly Atlantic, is a touch straighter. Now, 0 turn and 1 fade means different things to different manufacturers. But looking at these two premium plastics, it does seem that the Ocean Waste Pacific is a touch more overstable, though I'm not sure that it warrants a 0 turn and 2 fade. While the Swirly Atlantic does have a little more stability than the base Ocean Waste Marine, making that 0 turn and 1 fade pretty accurate. Let's move on though to one of our two drivers we'll be comparing today, the Innova Roadrunner. Rated at 9.5, -4.1, we have the Roadrunner in two plastics, Champion and Halo Star. Now, both of these plastics are on the more overstable side of Innova's plastic options, typically flying much more overstable than any of their base blends, as well as Star or G-Star. But of course, the Roadrunner is a roller type disc for higher arm speeds. So how will it fly for me? Well, in Champion plastic, from a decent hyzer angle, the Roadrunner smoothly and slowly flips over, turns, and holds that turn for a controllably understable flight. However, in Halo Star, there's just a little bit more stability. From a similar angle, it starts to turn over, but stops, and instead slowly fades out. I've actually been considering the Roadrunner for my own bag, and I picked up this Halo Star one to support a local tournament because I thought it looked awesome. But I think for me, the Champion flew closer to what I'm looking for. Next up, hot off the heels of its release just last week, it's the Eclipse Tempo from Axiom. We'll be comparing it to the Proton Soft Tempo from earlier this year. The Tempo is Axiom's newest approach disc, which, even though it's been around for a year, still doesn't have a stock release. So while we wait for that, let's check out these two options. Rated at 4.40 2.5, the first version of the Tempo came out with the MVP Circuit Challenge in Neutron plastic, followed by the Proton Soft Tempo ahead of the OTB Open earlier this year. And now, finally, the Eclipse Tempo for the MVP Open in late 2024. The Tempo is a flat-top, overstable approach disc with low glide, designed for accuracy on both forehand and backhand when you're just outside that comfortable putting range. How, though, will the new Eclipse variation match up with Proton Soft? Well, off the tee, there's virtually nothing to choose between the two. Both hold straight briefly before a reliable fade kicks in. Now, if I were nitpicking and looking for a difference, I might say the Proton Soft Tempo held straight for just half a second longer, but definitely not enough to say that there's a clear and obvious difference. Next, let's see another approach style disc that was also recently released. It's the Wild Thing from Jester Disc Golf. We tested Jester's full lineup a few months ago, including their Love Putter, Peace Train Midrange, and Dreamweaver Fairway Driver. The Wild Thing marks their first truly overstable disc, at least according to flight numbers. And we have more than a few to compare. Jester sent us the prototype Wild Thing in Forever Plastic a couple months ago, but we couldn't find the right video for it until now. Lucky for us, that gave them time to release 2 additional plastics, as well as a stock version of the Forever Plastic, so we can compare them all side by side. Jester's other 3 discs were manufactured by MVP in the plastics that you know and love. However, the Wild Thing is different. Though still manufactured in the United States, it is not made by MVP. It is, though, available in 3 different plastics, and the feel of them, along with the markings, feels similar to Gateway's plastics, but you'll notice that there isn't any tooling on the bottom that says Gateway. And that's because this is a proprietary mold owned by Jester Disc Golf. That mold is a flat-top, beaded putt-and approach disc with a blunt nose. It has an average depth, not too deep, but not too shallow, and the difference in feel between these plastics is significant. Their Forever Plastic, similar to Gateway's NXT blend, is a stiff but still grippy premium plastic. It feels super durable, hence the Forever name. Next, we have the stock stamp version of the Forever Plastic, which feels the same but has their new stock stamp and features the same odometer style flight numbers with the PDJ approval date and 1 additional suggested use, Scramble. We also have 2 additional blends, Grippy, which is just as stiff, if not somehow stiffer than Forever Plastic, and of course, grippier, and grippy glow, which is, surprise, surprise, grippy, stiff, and glows. All of these are rated with the same flight numbers of 3302.5. First up, let's take a look at these prototypes side by side, and oh boy, are they overstable. Wow. They definitely seem to have less glide and more fade than advertised. But hey, they're prototypes, so maybe the stock run in Forever Plastic will be a little different. And yeah, that's definitely got a straighter push forward, but still plenty of reliable fade, not bad. So what about grippy and grippy glow? And oh boy, are they overstable. Wow. If we're comparing these wild things to each other, the stock Forever is probably the most usable. But sometimes extra stability is just what you need, and the grippy blends do offer that. But perhaps the base blends beat in faster, and they soon equal out to the same flight numbers. For now, that's just speculation. But comparing them to the approach disc we just saw, the Tempo, they are much more overstable. But what say we cleanse our palates on something a little bit less intense, like the Clash Popcorn. The Popcorn was the fourth disc from Clash to be approved by the PDGA, and their first putter in their lineup. Rated at 3301, it's available in several different plastics, including their standard premium blend Steady, as well as base blends Hardy and Softy, whose differences are fairly self-explanatory, while they also make it in their Tour Series premium blend Sunny. Of those four, we have two to compare today, the base Softy blend and the Tour Series Sunny. And whatever differences you're expecting from these two blends, you're probably wrong. Because as you can see, side by side, both are actually quite understable. Flipping up from hyzer, holding that turn, and slowly drifting to the right. But it's clear to see that one certainly drifts more than the other. And surprisingly, it's the premium Sunny plastic that's more understable. Now, we almost always expect a premium plastic to be more overstable than a base plastic. That stronger flight plate allows more of the weight to be out along the rim, and thus it usually has more gyroscopic stability. But regardless of the difference between these two, they both seem quite a bit more understable than 3301. And on now to a disc that might fly that same flight path, but a little farther, the Prodigy M4. Now, in our past experience with the Prodigy M4, it has been quite understable. But today we have two plastics we haven't thoroughly explored. The first is their 400 plastic. At least, I think it is. According to the invoice, packing slip, and custom order form, it says it's 400 plastic. But maybe I'm more accustomed to 400 plastic being translucent? I don't know. But now that I say that, I'm second guessing myself. Either way, we'll be comparing it to Prodigy's new recycled plastic, Reblend. Reblend is Prodigy's 100% recycled plastic blend made from reground discs that did not originally meet production standards. It's a premium plastic made from upcycled 400, 500, 750, ProFlex, and Special Blend plastics. So how will Prodigy's Reblend compare to their regular premium plastic? Well, in 400, the M4, from a moderate hyzer release, flips to flat, thinks about turning, but eventually gives way to a smooth fade. While in Reblend, from a similar angle, it slowly flips over, turns, and finishes nice and straight. And while I'm sure most players that have tried an M4 didn't really find it to be too overstable, I guess it is good to have another option that's much more understable. However, they are both rated at 55 -11. So I wouldn't mind seeing the flight numbers for Reblend adjusted to fit the flight characteristics. Next up, a highly requested comparison, we have the Clash Discs Cookie in two plastics, Steady Ring and Tone. Now, Steady Ring is just a visual variant of their Steady Premium plastic, which is typically, though not always, opaque. Tone, though, is the plastic that many of you have been requesting in the comments. And it's an interesting one. For years now, companies have been trying to innovate in disc golf with overmolds, a topic that we covered quite thoroughly in a recent video. But the Tone is different. As you can see, it's more of an undermold of sorts. Clash Disc says that, quote, the bottom of the rim is made of stiffer plastic, which makes the disc very torque resistant. And while we haven't tested the torque resistant part of that, I can see what they mean by stiffer. That added stiffness should increase durability for the disc when it hits the ground, which Clash says will keep it flying the same for much longer. Clash also says that the top of the disc is made from a grippy premium plastic, which guarantees the best possible feel when throwing in any conditions. Their words, not mine. I'd say you're probably going to need some extra chalk or dry bag action on a hot, sticky day. This is pretty tacky. They also go on to say that the tone technology accelerates the disc's spin speed on throws. And since we don't have a tone and non-tone tech disc to compare spin rates, we're just going to have to take their word for it and take these two here and throw them and see what they can do. On a low power backhand, both cookies fly straight and true before a generous low speed fade, both fitting into that 7502 slot pretty nicely. But if Caleb really powers up on these cookies, it's a slightly different story. Both quickly turn over, but eventually fight back, again for a decently overstable flight. Now, I have both of these cookies because I wanted to throw one for myself. I've been looking for a 7502 type disc for my forehand. So, can the cookie cut the mustard? Well, unfortunately, not really. Both of these almost immediately turn and turn and turn before finally fading out. And that means that I learned two important things about the cookie. First, it's not going to be finding a spot in my bag. And secondly, that the tone cookie, apart from how it feels in your hand, flew pretty much exactly like our steady ring cookie. I don't think we're done talking about tone technology though. They have so many different molds now available with this new technology. I would love to compare more of those. So if that's something you'd be interested in seeing, let us know in the comments below. For now though, let's move on from some cutting edge technology to a high-speed driver with a cutting edge. It's the Discraft Nuke. The Nuke is one of Discraft's most popular distance drivers. Approved by the PDGA long ago in 2009. It's been a go-to for Discraft fans for years now. Rated at 13.5, -13, it's so popular it even has spin-off variations, like the insanely overstable Nuke OS, or its understable variation, the Nuke SS. But what makes the Nuke great are its big distance shots, combining glide with a slight turn and lots of fade. For today's comparison, we have an Ezra Aderhold Z-Flex Jawbreaker Tour Series Nuke from earlier this year, along with this funky Ledgestone regular Jawbreaker Nuke, and of course, you can't have a Nuke comparison without going with the ESP Nuke. And off the tee, the Z-Flex Jawbreaker Nuke from Heiser just briefly flips to flat before a little air bounce, and then its overstability takes over in a big way. While the base plastic Jawbreaker Nuke amazingly does almost the exact same thing, air bounce and all. And finally, the ESP Nuke actually found a little bit of turn, but also eventually has that reliable low-speed fade you expect from a Nuke. By far, the most surprising thing about the Nukes was that this Jawbreaker plastic flew as overstable as the premium blends. That is, until it hits one tree. But we're not testing discs thrown into trees today. That's enough for the Nuke, and we wrap up with the ultimate mid-range showdown, the Axiom Hex. Now, we have compared some hexes in the past, in Fission, Neutron, and Eclipse. But today, we have 4 different versions. Total Eclipse, R2 Eclipse, which is, of course, Eclipse on the rim, but the core is R2 Neutron. We also have Neutron Soft, and finally, Proton Soft. Now, typically, Axiom, aka MVP, does take the time to change their flight numbers when you take a disc from one plastic to another. All 4 versions we have today are rated at 5.5, -11. But will they all fly the same? I don't think so. First up, let's see Proton Soft. This Proton Soft hex is from the OTB Open release earlier this year, and off the tee, it flips up from a slight hyzer only briefly before a decent fade. Matching that stability almost exactly is the R2 Eclipse hex from last year's Gyropalooza box. Once again, it flips up from a slight hyzer to again find some decent fade. And both of these are flying a little more overstable than the numbers of 5.5 -1.1 would suggest. Meanwhile, Neutron Soft comes in with a slightly straighter flight. And finally, the Total Eclipse Hexalotl from Halloween 2023 shows us why it's still one of the most sought-after runs of Hex since they were released, with a super straight flight. Now, even with MVP's precision manufacturing shown in incredible detail by Destin from Smarter Everyday, which you should definitely watch if you haven't seen it already, there was a surprising amount of variation from plastic to plastic. As always, we try to look for trends, patterns, anything that would help us understand how discs are going to fly before we throw them. But time and time again, we find that there's no rule, no one-size-fits-all solution that you can apply to every disc to know how it's going to fly. Sometimes a premium plastic is more overstable, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes that translucent premium blend is beefcake, and other times it's not. And if I've said it once, I've said it in video after video after video. You don't know a disc until you throw it. So get out there, throw some discs in different plastics, and then comment below what you learned about your discs. Remember, if you liked how one of these exact discs flew in today's video, you can purchase it on our website while supplies last at sixsideddiscs.com in our From Our YouTube section for 10% off since they're lightly used. Your purchase directly supports the content that we create, so thank you for your support. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. It's a premium plastic made from upcycled 400, 500, 750 Spectrum. Special blended profiles. Okay. Reblend Finally, the ESP Nuke actually found a little bit of turn, but also eventually has that reliable. Now, typically, Axiom, aka MVP Disc Sports, does change their flight numbers for plastics and discs and stuff. According to the packing slip, invoice, and the customer, the tempo. So let's see our first plastic comparison of the day. Weight distribution. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.